possibility to have you here with us, with the group. Aleksandra takes this position after.
Well, I have a double degree in biotechnology and social. Yeah. Thank you very much for the opportunity to be here. And I have to say, it is still a very exciting day. I have a very difficult situation after a very interesting and interactive talk. So I hope you will be interested in what I have to say. I'm representing European Technology Platform Plans for the Future that is based in Brussels. And I have a double degree in biotechnology and social sciences, which might seem quite unusual combination, but I have to say it's very useful in what I do and what I used to do as a researcher. So today at my presentation, I would like to share with you some views and results of the study that we launched, but also in the second part, I would like to discuss and present some opportunities that might be interesting for you as for young researchers starting your career. So I will shortly discuss and present some options to get the European funding. Just to start with, I would like to shortly introduce you to the topic of European technology platforms as such. We are one of them. We are focusing on a plant sector as such. And the European technology platforms were initiated by the European Commission around 2004. As a platform, we were then transformed into a multi-stakeholder organization. So we are self-funded. The role of the European technology platform as such are officially recognized in the Horizon 2020, which is the biggest funding mechanism in the European Union, as a part of external advice and societal engagement needed to implement this funding scheme. In general, the European technology platforms are there to provide some strategies. They are mostly based on the business analysis and try to include what kind of opportunities as well as bottlenecks are there that should be supported by the European funding. We are also trying to mobilize industry and other stakeholders within the European Union. And last but not least is information sharing and knowledge transfer. This is also why I'm here, and I'm really happy to be able to interact with you. Plant ETP represents the different stakeholders from the plant sector. So as you can see, our members are from farming community, represented through Copa-Cogeca, that stands for farmers and farming organization all over Europe. We also represent scientists through EPSO, so European Plant Science Organization, that stands for Research Institute and Universities. And of course, industry, represented by European Seed Association, that gathers different companies, as well as direct members, including, of course, KWS, which we are very happy to be our member as well. And what do we do? In general, as mentioned, we are based in Brussels, and our activities are focusing really to interact with the policymakers, so with European Union institutions such as Commission and the European Parliament. I think it was quite interesting to hear what kind of question you asked during previous presentation. So I'm really happy that there is some kind of background and an interest. For example, whether or not the new plant breeding techniques will be something that will be applied here in Europe. This is exactly the areas that we are trying to support plant science and plant research in Europe and to deal with these issues on the European level. But we are doing quite a lot. So regularly we provide our feedback and input to work programs in Horizon 2020. So our role is to really inform policymakers who are setting those programs to include the topics that might be relevant for the future. We were talking a lot about what plant science and research can offer for mitigating, for example, climate change, or for providing food security. And our role is to really make this contribution to be seen by people who make the decision. We are also initiating a public-private partnership on integrated crop production. This initiative is being developed and also aims to make the links between a scientist, farming community, and of course industry. We are involved in organizing a set of workshops in collaboration with the European Parliament, also to inform policymakers and to create a space for our members to be able to ask the question, to interact with policymakers. Those are happening at least once a year at the European Parliament. And something that I would like to really focus on today is the study on plant breeding benefits. So this is something that it was mentioned several times today. What is the potential of plant breeding, plant research and innovation? But this is something that is obvious for you guys. It is something that is obvious for people who are doing the research, who are implementing the research, but it's not that obvious for people outside the sector. So we decided and we observed there is a lot of misinformation and disinformation around the sector. Whenever we are talking about plant research and innovation in our sector, it is reduced to the conversation about genetic engineering, which is important part, but it's not all the innovation that plant sector has to offer. So we decided it really is the time to learn and to provide some scientific evidence for what exactly plant breeding and plant research bring us and what we can offer. And that is why we commissioned a study that is focusing on the economic, environmental and societal value of plant breeding. It was commissioned by Plant ETP, but it was undertaken by independent researcher. And as mentioned, we used those kind of data and translated the numbers into more pragmatic, let's say, things that I will present you shortly. As my time is here limited, I will just focus on some of the examples, but I really encourage you, if you're interested, to take a look on this report that is available on our website. So just to start with, the first thing that the study did is summarizing the yield growth rate per year. As you can see, there are different rates and different percentage with the different crops, but on average you can see that the yield growth per year is approximately 1%. It used to be in the last 15 years, so it's an ex post study. And what is very important is that if we really want to satisfy the current and forthcoming demands, we need more. So we need approximately 2% yield growth per year. What is also important is that the increase of crop yield is slowing down. Still, land productivity in Europe is increasing. The second thing that we are trying to figure out, what was the reason for the still increasing yields in Europe? So quite, just to be very easy, let's say that there are two possible approaches to increase the productivity of yields. So first of all, it's an intensification. So we use more fertilizers, better irrigation system, and so on. The second approach is innovation. So we are improving plants, we are providing better seeds. The study focused what is the significance of each of those approaches. And as you can see, it was estimated that since the turn of the millennium, in European Union, several inputs were reduced, such as labor, fertilizer use, and plant protection products. Meanwhile, at the same time, we increased the use of machinery, which is also not really surprising. Additionally, quite important information is that the use of arable land in the European Union decreased by more than 6% since 2000. So, based on overall on the inputs that were calculated, you can see that the input use decreased at the rate of approximately 0.6% per year in European Union. So it is not about intensification, it's about innovation. So when we are talking about increasing agricultural productivity, what really happened in the last 15 years was that we provided better inputs rather than more inputs. So this is something that shows why plant breeding and plant research is important. But that's just to start with. Then, based on the results and the calculation that were provided, we estimated what is the real benefit for the consumer. Because in terms of plant breeding, it's not that easy for the consumer to see the benefit for themselves. Quite often, the way they think is, well, the company's benefit, maybe farmer benefit, but what is the kind of overall benefit for ourselves? We have a lot of food here in Europe, so for the consumer, it's not that easy to see their benefits at the end. But there are, and they are quite big benefits. First of all, in case of wheat, it was estimated that around 80% of the growth in wheat harvest over the past 15 years could be attributed to plant breeding. The other factors, of course, are the weather variation, fertilizers, plant protection products, and some others. But I think that's a significant numbers that plant breeders should be really proud of and should really announce as often as possible.
More than significant is really
There are much more numbers in the report, if interested, to other crops. But what does it mean for the users itself and for the growers in Europe? Those kind of estimations show that thanks to innovation in plant breeding, in the last 15 years, farmers in Europe grow additionally 22 million tons of wheat, 10 million tons of corn, and more than 3 million tons of oilseed rape. But those number doesn't say you a lot. Okay, you are able to grow more. So we decided to translate those numbers and to present infographics that could be really easily understood by the general public and by the people that are outside of the plant sector. And as you can see, that's just one of the example, is that those 22 million tons is enough to provide 32 billion loaves of bread, which stands for 64 loaves of for bread for every person in EU. That's quite a lot. That's a kind of different numbers when you see them. That plant breeding really contributed and provided additional food. It's also about the competitiveness of the European Union. Being able to produce more from the same area of land enabled us in the past 15 years to contribute more than 14 billion to European GDP. It also allowed European countries to be more competitive. If it wasn't for innovation in plant breeding, the EU would become a net importer in all major arable crops, including those that we currently export, such as wheat, barley, and potatoes. And last but not least, it's about the environmental impacts. So being able to produce more on the same area on land saves us CO2 emission. And for the last 15 years, we are able to reduce it by 3.4 billion tons. That stands for approximately the amount of CO2 emission that is emitted by the entire traffic in Germany in 1 year. We were able to save biodiversity as large as those from cutting forest in Indonesia for palm since 2000 twice. We are also able to save water. On balance, it was approximately 55 billion of cubic meter water. This is as much as 22 million Olympic swimming pools. If you're interested to knowing the methodology and more details about the study, I really encourage you to look into the report. But those numbers, I think you should all be aware of. And also those numbers are very useful for you whenever applying for a grant proposal, whenever writing a project. There are different people assessing the proposal. And there is quite often a question, okay, what is the potential meaning of the research that you're doing? Of course, if you're doing basic research, it's maybe not that easy to say, okay, we have to be careful with what we are promising. But there is a potential in the end, and having access to this kind of data could really help your argumentation, why your research, why the activities that you are involved are important and should matter and should be supported by the European funding. That is why I would like to also encourage you to start applying for the grants on the European level. I will not go through all the possibilities. I would like to just point out what kind of chances, what kind of programs are there for you. So of course the first one that we are the most engaged in is Horizon 2020. And as you can see, there are three basic pillars of this funding mechanism. So you have societal challenges, industrial leadership, and excellent science. In general, of course, if you are part of a team, you are eligible to write a proposal to project and try to get funding from those two pillars. But for you, starting as a young researchers, I think the most important is the first pillar, so excellent science. There are two major options for you that you are eligible to try to get your funding from. It's the European Research Council for those of you who have the PhD and beyond, and for all of those who are still in your PhD program, it's Maria Skłodowska-Curie actions. So I think most of you would be the most important in the second one. And there are four major components of the Maria Skłodowska-Curie actions, dependently on what is your what your career, what stage of career you are at. So if you are already PhD, you obtain your PhD, you can apply for innovative training networks that is up to 3 years of fellowships. For those of you who are still PhD students, you have a chance to apply for individual fellowship. I'm sorry. So for those of you who did not get your PhD degree now, you can apply for the innovative training networks. And for those of you with PhD, you can apply for individual fellowship up to 2 years. You can also have a research and innovation staff exchange. And I think it's quite important also that this kind of program can be applicable to exchange staff between academic and non-academic sectors. So you have a lot of possibility, being a researcher, being a postdoc, to try to work in a bit different environment, to take your skills, to take your experience from academia and to apply to have a kind of fellowship in a small, medium enterprise or a bigger company as well. This is possible, and those kind of grants allow you to do so. You can also apply for co-founding of regional, national and international programs, so-called co-found, if you want to use the opportunity on the more regional level. I'm happy to share this presentation so you don't have to take the notes. There are also links included. So just to inform you about already open calls, so something I think that you might be interested. There are already two open. One as a call for individual fellowship. The deadline is 14th of September. So if you click the hyperlink, you can find more details. The other one is connected with co-founding, so more regional possibility. Also, you have the deadline in September. So approximately 3 more months. I encourage you to at least try or check if you're eligible to do so.
Long-time advisor and reviewer of a different EU program, I will strongly recommend it to you to try. And try probably not one times, few times to be successful. Some people forget it that the EU has at the moment for person program like Marie Curie and many others, the same amount of money as in research program. It's a lot.
It's a lot. It is.
Please try.
And yeah, having the opportunity and the dinner today, you can ask the question of possible person who assess the proposals.
I have yellow card for you, but you could read what is written on the card for everyone. And we have 2 minutes more.
Okay. On average, we eat 50 wheat plants, 3 rice plants, 0.5 maize plants each every day. This is exactly kind of information that we need to share. Okay, so I just have 2 more slides just to inform you about other opportunities. Outside Horizon 2020, you can also try to get some scholarship or fellowship. And I really encourage you to check the EMBO website that is really there to support talented researchers at all stages of their careers. So dependently on what you are interested in, there are fellowships for young researchers, more advanced scientists, as well as prizes like Gold Medal and Women in Science Awards. So there is a lot of option for you to discover. And the last but not least, there is also option to get fellowship from Oacd. Also, the deadline is 10 September this year. So if you're planning to organize, for example, a workshop, and you don't really have money to invite some well-known speaker, that might be opportunity for you to apply for the funds. So that is just very short summary of the funding opportunities. If you need more information, feel free to contact me or to discuss later on.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
For this opportunity to be with us, because important you know now contact person. If you have any question, you may ask by calling, by sending mail, and please look on that, because I again like to stress this is very interesting with a relatively high chance to be successful program. Thank you once again.
Thank you.
We finish now our official part. I could also not participate in your internal seminar. We will leave it. Matthias, I would ask you after the seminar to close the windows here. And the other one is now not here. To be in the restaurant. We try
Try to be
quick.
As we close the restaurant.